Ever heard the phrase, men are from Mars, women are from Venus? Well, when it comes to dating advice, that couldn't be more accurate. The dating world is a complex universe filled with paradoxes and contradictions. One of the greatest of these is the enigma of women giving dating advice to men. It's a bit like a Martian asking a Venusian for tips on how to live on Mars. The terrain is just different. Imagine you're out with your friends and a woman tells you, just be yourself and the right one will come along. Sounds like solid advice, right? But then you try it out and you're left wondering why you're still single. There's a simple explanation for that. It's because what women say they want and what they actually respond to can sometimes be as different as, well, Mars and Venus. Take, for example, our friend Bob. He was told by his female friends to be a gentleman, to take it slow and not be too forward. Bob, being the good guy that he is, did exactly that. But despite his best efforts, he ended up in the dreaded friend zone more times than he'd like to admit. Poor Bob. Or consider the story of Steve, who was advised to be sensitive and express his feelings openly. Steve turned into an open book, sharing his deepest thoughts and feelings on the first date. The result? Let's just say Steve spent many nights eating ice cream and watching romantic comedies alone. Now, we're not saying that all dating advice from women is terrible. After all, who knows better about what women want than women themselves? But the paradox lies in the difference between what is said and what is responded to, between the ideal and the real. So, ladies, we appreciate the advice, but we might be better off seeking counsel from our fellow Martians. Now, don't get me wrong. Women's advice often comes from a place of compassion, which is lovely. But unfortunately, this compassion can sometimes lead to unhelpful advice. You see, the compassionate nature of women might lead them to caution men against flirting or taking initiative, or because they've had negative experiences themselves. It's like having a friend who's allergic to peanuts telling you to avoid peanut butter. It might not be the best advice for you, but it's coming from a good place. Let's paint a picture. Picture your friend Lucy. She's been on the receiving end of some pretty disastrous pickup lines, so when you ask her how to approach someone you're interested in, she might say, just be yourself. And that's not bad advice, but it lacks the crucial element of attraction and initiative. Or consider your pal Emma, who's had a string of bad relationships where she felt she was doing all the work. She might discourage you from taking the lead, saying, let her come to you. Again, it's not the worst advice, but it neglects the fact that a lot of women appreciate a man who takes the initiative. And then there's Alex, who's been hurt in the past and now believes that all men are just out to play games. She'll tell you, don't play hard to get, just be nice. But that kind of advice doesn't consider that a little bit of mystery can be a good thing in the early stages of dating. These are all compassionate responses, but they're shaped by personal experiences and biases, and they might not serve you well in your own journey. It's important to remember that advice is just that, advice. It's not a rule book. It's not a one-size-fits-all solution. What works for Lucy, Emma, or Alex might not work for you. So, men, the next time your female friend tells you to just be nice, remember to take it with a grain of salt. It's not about disregarding their advice entirely, but rather understanding that it's shaped by their own experiences and may not necessarily be the best path for you. Before we go any further, do us a favor and hit that like and subscribe button. It'll take you less time than it does to swipe right on Tinder, and it's definitely more rewarding. Now let's talk about the right person fallacy. It's a common theme in the dating advice that women give to men. It's a comforting idea, isn't it? That there's a perfect person out there for everyone, and all we need to do is wait until they come along. It's like waiting for the bus. You just stand there, and eventually the right one comes along, right? But here's the rub. Life isn't a bus stop, and dating certainly isn't. The right person fallacy can often prevent us from taking responsibility for our own actions and improving ourselves. Instead of working on our communication skills or understanding what we might be doing wrong, we're just waiting for the right person to come along and magically solve all our problems. Let's take our friend John, for example. John is a great guy. He's kind, he's funny, but he's been single for a while. When he asks his female friends for advice, they often tell him, don't worry, John, you just haven't met the right person yet. But what if the right person does come along and John still can't communicate his feelings effectively? What if he still doesn't understand the nuances of building attraction? As comforting as it might be, the right person fallacy can prevent us from becoming the best versions of ourselves. It can stop us from learning, growing, and improving. Instead of waiting for the right person, let's focus on becoming the right person. After all, we attract what we are, not what we want. The more we work on ourselves, the better our chances of attracting someone who complements us, who understands us, and who appreciates us for who we truly are. So while we're all waiting for that right person, let's not forget to work on ourselves. Now let's not forget the societal influence. It's like that friend who whispers in your ear at a party, convincing you to do things you probably shouldn't. Society has a way of shaping our perspectives, and in the realm of dating, it's no different. Take for instance the concept of societal sexual shame, a phenomenon that can heavily influence the dating advice women give to men. Imagine for a moment a society that discourages men from expressing their desires openly. This could lead women to advise men to approach dating in a more subdued, less expressive manner. Yet, this might not necessarily ignite the spark of attraction. It's akin to advising someone to run a marathon without breaking a sweat. It's simply not feasible, nor is it particularly exciting. Now, let's picture another scenario. Imagine a woman advising her male friend to always be the gentleman, to always put the woman first. While this advice is well-intentioned and rooted in respect, it might not necessarily create that elusive chemistry. It's like being told to make a fire without any sparks. It might keep you warm, but it won't set your world alight. So what's the moral of the story? The takeaway is that dating advice, especially when it's coming from a place of societal influence or personal bias, might not always be the surefire route to a successful love life. It's important to remember that attraction is complex, and what works for one person might not work for another. Remember folks, dating is a two-way street, so let's navigate it with advice that actually works. And hey, while we're on the topic of things that work, don't forget to check out our YouTube AI Masterclass. It's a game changer, teaching you how to take control of your life, earn a passive income, and break free from the 9-to-5 grind. Thanks for joining us on this journey through the convoluted world of dating advice. Don't forget to share your experiences, thoughts, and insights in the comments below. Your story might just be the piece of advice someone else needs. So, until next time, keep it real in the world of dating.